The beginning of a perfect lie. For most of my life, I believed that love was simple. You meet someone, you trust them, you build a life together. At least, that's what I believed before Emily came into my life, and before she completely destroyed my understanding of trust. Emily and I met 4 years ago at a friend's small house party. It was the kind of gathering where people mostly stood around talking, drinking cheap soda, and pretending the music wasn't too loud. I almost didn't go that night. I had work early the next morning, and honestly, I was exhausted. But my friend kept insisting. "Come on," he said. "You never go out anymore." Eventually, I gave in. Looking back now, I sometimes wonder how different my life would be if I had stayed home that night. When I arrived, the house was already full of people. Laughter echoed through the rooms, and someone had turned the living room into a small dance floor. That's when I saw her. Emily stood near the kitchen counter talking to a group of friends. She was wearing a bright red dress that immediately caught my attention. But it wasn't just her appearance. It was the way she carried herself. Confident. Relaxed. Like she belonged anywhere she stood. At some point, our mutual friend introduced us. "Emily, this is Ryan." She smiled warmly and shook my hand. "Nice to meet you." Her voice was soft but full of energy. We started talking about random things. Music, work, movies, childhood memories. The conversation flowed so naturally that we barely noticed time passing. Before I knew it, nearly 2 hours had gone by. When the party began winding down, she asked something that caught me off guard. "Do you want to grab coffee sometime?" I laughed. I was about to ask you the same thing. That moment became the beginning of everything. Falling in love. Our first date was simple. Just coffee at a small cafe downtown. But something about that afternoon felt special. Emily had this way of making every conversation feel meaningful. She listened carefully when I spoke, laughed at my stupid jokes, and shared stories about her own life. After that first date, we started seeing each other almost every day. Dinner dates turned into long evening walks. Even small errands became fun when we did them together. Emily was affectionate in a way that made me feel valued. She would send good morning texts every day. Sometimes she surprised me with small gifts. Once she showed up at my apartment with homemade cookies because I mentioned earlier that I liked chocolate chip. It felt like something out of a movie. Within 6 months, we were officially a couple. My friends liked her. My family liked her. Everything seemed perfect. For the first time in years, I truly believed I had found the right person. The relationship everyone envied. For the first 2 years, Emily and I had what many people would call a perfect relationship. We traveled together. We celebrated holidays together. We even talked about moving in together permanently. Whenever people saw us together, they often said the same thing. "You two look so happy." And honestly, I believed it. Emily supported me during difficult moments in my life. When my father had health problems, she stayed by my side through every hospital visit. When I struggled at work, she encouraged me not to give up. She seemed caring, loyal, understanding. All the qualities someone hopes to find in a partner. That's why what happened later felt impossible to accept. Because when someone spends years convincing you they love you, you never imagine they could secretly be living a completely different life. The first small change. About 2.5 years into our relationship, I started noticing small changes. At first, they seemed harmless. Emily began spending more time on her phone. Whenever a message arrived, she would glance at the screen quickly before locking it. Sometimes she smiled at the messages. Other times she left the room to answer calls. I didn't think much about it. Everyone has friends and co-workers. But slowly those small moments became more frequent. She began staying late at work more often. Sometimes she told me she had team dinners. Other nights she said she had extra meetings. Again, I tried to be understanding. Work can be stressful. But one thing started bothering me. She never invited me. Not once. Whenever I asked about joining her for one of those dinners, she always had an excuse. It's just coworkers. You would be bored. It's really just business talk. I told myself not to overthink it. Trust was important. And I trusted Emily. At least, I thought I did. The message that changed everything. One evening, Emily came home looking exhausted. She told me she had a long day and wanted to take a shower before dinner. While she was in the bathroom, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I wasn't trying to invade her privacy. I was simply pouring myself a glass of water when the screen lit up. A message appeared. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. My entire body froze. For several seconds I just stared at the screen, hoping I had misunderstood something. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was meant for someone else. But then another message appeared. When can I see you again? My heart began pounding so hard that I could hear it in my ears. I immediately stepped away from the phone. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. But a cold feeling had already started spreading through my chest. When Emily returned from the shower, she immediately noticed something was wrong. What happened? She asked. I hesitated before pointing toward the phone. Her expression changed for a brief moment. A flash of panic crossed her face. But it disappeared almost instantly. Oh, that, she said casually. It's just a coworker joking around. I looked at her carefully. Joking about what? She shrugged. He flirts with everyone. It's stupid. Her answer sounded rehearsed. But I didn't push further. Instead, I forced myself to believe her explanation. Because accepting the alternative would mean accepting that the person I loved might be betraying me. And I wasn't ready for that truth yet. Doubt begins to grow. Over the next few weeks, something inside me changed. Even though I tried to ignore it, doubt had begun creeping into my mind. Emily continued behaving the same way. More late nights. More secret phone messages. More excuses. Sometimes she left the room whenever her phone rang. Other times she quickly closed conversations when I walked nearby. Each time it happened, the voice in my mind grew louder. Something isn't right. But every time I tried to talk about it, Emily reacted the same way. You're being paranoid. You don't trust me. You're imagining things. Eventually I started questioning myself. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe stress was affecting my judgment. But deep down, my instincts kept warning me. And soon, those instincts would prove to be right. The truth I was never supposed to discover. After that strange message appeared on Emily's phone, things between us started to feel different. Even though I tried to act normal, the doubt inside my mind refused to disappear. Every time her phone buzzed, I noticed it. Every time she stepped into another room to answer a call, I noticed that too. But what bothered me the most was the growing distance between us. Emily used to tell me everything. Now it felt like she was hiding something important. At first, I tried to convince myself that I was imagining things. I told myself that relationships go through phases, that stress at work could explain her behavior. But deep down, something inside me knew the truth was waiting just around the corner. And soon, it arrived. The night everything fell apart. One Friday evening, Emily told me she had to attend another work dinner. She said a group of clients had come into town and her team was taking them out to celebrate a successful project. She looked excited while getting ready. She wore a red dress I had always liked. For a moment, I felt a strange feeling in my chest. Not anger. Not sadness. Just a quiet suspicion I couldn't explain. Don't wait up, she said as she grabbed her purse. It might be a late night. I nodded. Have fun. After she left, I tried to distract myself with television. But my thoughts kept returning to that message I had seen weeks earlier. Around 9 p.m., I received a text from her. Dinner is going great. Something about that message felt strange. It was short. Almost too quick. Then something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed again. It was a message from my friend Alex. Hey man, random question. Is Emily supposed to be downtown tonight? My heart skipped a beat. Yeah, I replied. Work dinner. There was a pause before his next message appeared. Because I'm at a bar right now, and I swear I just saw her here with another guy. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen for several seconds, hoping I had misunderstood him. But then Alex sent a picture. And everything changed. The photo that broke my heart. The picture showed Emily sitting at a bar. Across from her sat a man I had never seen before. They were leaning toward each other, laughing like they shared some private joke. His hand rested lightly on her arm. The way she looked at him, it was the same look she used to give me. In that moment, the truth hit me like a wave crashing against a wall. She wasn't at a work dinner. She was on a date. For a few minutes I just sat there, staring at the photo while my mind struggled to process everything. 3 years of memories flashed through my head. All the times she said she loved me. All the promises we made about the future. And suddenly those memories felt like scenes from a movie that had never been real. I grabbed my keys and drove downtown. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. But I needed to see it with my own eyes. Seeing the truth. When I arrived at the bar, my heart was beating so fast that I could barely breathe. I stood outside the window and looked inside. And there she was. Emily. Laughing. Smiling. Completely comfortable sitting next to another man. They didn't look like co-workers. They looked like a couple. At one point he leaned closer and whispered something into her ear. She laughed and placed her hand on his shoulder. That simple gesture felt like a knife twisting inside my chest. I could have walked inside right then. I could have confronted them in front of everyone. But instead, I did something else. I took a picture. Then another. And another. After that, I quietly walked back to my car and drove home. Because in that moment, I realized something important. A dramatic confrontation wouldn't fix anything. The relationship was already over. The confrontation. Emily came home around midnight. She looked cheerful as she stepped through the door. Hey, she said casually. You're still awake? I looked at her silently. How? Was dinner? I asked. She shrugged. Pretty boring actually. Just business talk. The lie came out of her mouth so easily. Like she had practiced it 100 times. That's when I pulled out my phone. Without saying a word, I showed her the pictures. Her entire body froze. The smile disappeared from her face instantly. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally she whispered, "It's not what it looks like." I almost laughed. Really? I said quietly. Because at that moment, the excuses started pouring out. He's just a friend. You're misunderstanding the situation. It wasn't a date. But the evidence was right there in front of us. Eventually her voice cracked. And she admitted the truth. She had been seeing him for 4 months. 4 months of lies. 4 months of pretending our relationship was perfectly normal. I felt strangely calm as she spoke. Maybe because the worst had already happened. The moment I saw that picture, something inside me had already broken. I'm done, I told her. At first she cried. Then she begged. Then she tried blaming me. You were distant. You never trusted me. But I knew those words were just attempts to avoid responsibility. That night, I packed my things and left. The lies continue. Over the next few days, I tried focusing on rebuilding my life. But then something surprising happened. Friends started messaging me. Apparently, Emily had been telling people that I was the problem. According to her version of events, I was jealous and controlling. She told them she had to leave me because I was toxic. When I heard that, I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. After everything she had done, she was still trying to play the victim. That's when I made a decision. If she wanted to lie about me, I wasn't going to stay silent. Exposing the truth. I gathered the evidence. The photos from the bar. The messages I had discovered. The timeline showing how long the affair had been happening. And then I shared the truth. Not out of revenge, but because I refused to let her destroy my reputation. Within hours, the reactions started coming in. Friends were shocked. Some apologized for believing her story. Others simply expressed disbelief. Emily, however, completely lost control. She began sending me dozens of messages. Angry ones. Desperate ones. Threatening ones. How could you do this to me? You're ruining my life. You need to delete everything. But the truth was simple. I didn't ruin her life. Her choices did. Karma arrives. Over the next few weeks, the consequences started catching up with her. The guy she cheated with quickly disappeared. Apparently, he didn't want the drama. Some of her friends stopped talking to her after learning the truth. Even a few co-workers began treating her differently. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened to me. I started feeling better. For months I had been living with stress and doubt without realizing it. Now that everything was over, I finally felt free. I spent more time with friends. I focused on my career. I even started traveling again. Slowly, the pain began fading. The final message. About 3 months later, Emily sent me one last message. It simply said, "I'm sorry." For a moment, I considered replying. But then I realized something. An apology couldn't undo the betrayal. It couldn't rebuild the trust that had been destroyed. So I never responded. And that was the last time we spoke.